Hello fans, Rik here, the People's Poet, here to put out a message to all you fascist bully boys out there. Which is, stop being fascist bully boys and, I hate Neil. Yes, I hate Neil, and Vivian's a complete and utter bastard. Yeah, that's right. But Mike's a pretty cool guy, yeah. Nothing bad to say about Mike. Nice, short guy, wears cool specs a lot, you know, yeah, and all that jazz, and, you know what, I can't think of anything else to say, so I'm just going to do it as myself.
Yes, as most of you will know, Rik Mayall died at the age of 56 on the 9th of June this year in his home in Barnes in London. For a while the cause of death was unknown, but his widow stated that he was suffering from some sort of event after a run that morning. But many Rik Mayall fans, as well as comedy actors, have paid a tribute to him since he was one of the comedy greats, and he influenced a lot of people, including David Walliams.
So I thought I'd review one of his most popular shows to commemorate the memory of Rik Mayall. And what better show to review than the Young Ones?
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this. Oh, I need you, you need me. Oh, my darling, can't you see? Young ones, darling, we're the young ones. The young ones shouldn't be afraid to live, love. There's a song to be sung, 'cause we may not be the young ones very long.
The Young Ones is a British sitcom which was broadcast in the United Kingdom from 1982 to 1984 in two 6-part series. The show was shown on BBC Two, and it featured anarchic and offbeat humour which became very popular in the 1980s. And it made household names of its writers and performers. The show was about 4 undergraduate students sharing a house together. Violent punk Vivian, played by Adrian Edmondson, pompous would-be anarchist Rik, played by the late Rik Mayall, long-suffering paranoid hippie Neil, played by Nigel Planer, and the diminutive and shady Mike, played by Christopher Ryan. It also featured that British comedian who is in every single episode of the show, but we never take the time to figure out what his...
Oh fuck it, his name's Alexei Sayer.
Who played various members of the Bolosky family, most often Jerzy Bolosky, who was the landlord of the building, and occasionally independent characters, such as the train driver in Bambi and Harry the Bastard in Nasty. The show combined traditional sitcom style with violent slapstick, jokes that had nothing to do with the plot, and surrealism. These older styles were mixed in with the working and lower middle class attitudes of the growing 1980s alternative comedy boom. Every episode except for one featured a live performance by a band, including Madness, Motorhead and The Damned. Every single episode of the show would just be about the 4 students going about their daily lives, living together, and sometimes hating each other at the same time. The characters included Mike the Cool Person, played by Christopher Ryan, who was the assumed leader of the group and does not involve himself in the battles between the other 3. He makes puns which are either deliberately cheap or humorous but over-celebrated.
I'm not going to the laundry, I'm going to the cellar. I've got a stiff. Know what I mean? He gets work by the minute.
Most times you see Mike, he'll wear a pair of cool shades that make him look like a police officer without the uniform. He considers himself a ladies' man and brags about his power over women. Every time the gang do something stupid or outrageously crazy, Mike always likes to take charge of it. Whenever the lads get into a situation that they think they can't get out of, Mike always steps in to take charge of it and take care of everything.
This is a very tricky spot, but Mike, the cool person, will squeeze it.
Rik, played by the recently deceased Rik Mayall, is a self-proclaimed anarchist who is studying sociology and/or domestic sciences. He writes poetry and proclaims himself as the poet's people, believing himself to be the spokesperson for a generation.
This was actually the second time I ever saw Rik on screen. The first time I saw him was when he played Flashheart in the Blackadder series, and I had no idea that they were both the same person. I mean, who'd have thought that a guy who says,
Well, that's how I like my girls. Direct and to my point. Tally ho then, back to the bar.
in Blackadder was the same guy who does
Stop shouting, Neil! Stop
in the young ones.
Now, we all know that Rik passed away recently this year, but every show he's in, including this one, you could tell that he's just putting all his energy into his performances, giving us good over-the-top humour. He often gets into fights with Vivian over stuff that they believe in or don't believe in, or the fact that they just don't like each other at all. He's a vegetarian who wishes all men will love each other as brothers, except for Neil, who he hates, repeatedly calling him a bloody hippie. Nevertheless, nearly everything he does is hypocritical and self-serving. Vivian, often known as Viv Bastard, played by Adrian Edmondson, is a psychopathic punk medical student. He has spiked orange-dyed hair and 4 metal stars seemingly embedded on his forehead. He wears big boots, a sleeveless vest, and quite a few piercings. Vivian is very violent and uses his fists on Rik and Neil, but it's been proven that he despises Rik more than he does Neil. For example, when Rik, Mike and Neil meet his mother at a bar in the episode Boring, he calls both Neil and Mike his friends, but he refers Rik as a complete bastard, I know. And one of my favourite moments with her is when she visits them in the episode Sick, because of this scene.
Hello, Vivian.
Piss off!
That's no way to talk to your mother, Vivian.
All right then. Piss off, Mum.
That's better.
I freaking love that line. Let me hear it again.
All right then. Piss off, Mum.
And here's another piece of interesting trivia for you. For those of you who don't know, the actress who played Vivian's mother in The Young Ones was also the same actress who played Mrs. Scratchard in Blackadder's Christmas Carol. Bet you didn't see that coming, huh? Unless you already knew that, but if you did, then you probably did see that coming. We all know that Rik and Ade were partners in comedy during the time. And whatever comedy they were both in, you could tell that they were both giving it their all. Rik doing his over-the-top insanity humour, and Adrian doing his over-the-top insanity performances as well, but with a shouty type of voice.
And that's why I'm doing this with you, to commemorate his memory of his great comedy.
Neil the hippie, played by Nigel Planer, is a clinically depressed, pacifist, vegetarian environmentalist working towards a peace studies degree. He is victimised by the other housemates and is forced to do all the housework, shopping, cleaning and cooking. He is never acknowledged for it unless it goes wrong. Normally provides tea to drink and cornflakes or lentils for his housemates to eat. Neil believes that everyone and everything hates him. In some episodes of the show, we often see Neil attempting to kill himself, by either hanging or digging a grave for himself.
Okay lads, right, this is it, okay, I'm going now. This is the final moment, okay?
There was even one episode called Flood where he repeatedly hits himself in the face with a frying pan. And even though he does it around his so-called friends a couple of times, no one takes interest in why he's doing it, because they're more concerned about where their breakfasts are. And throughout the 2 series, Alexei routinely appears as many characters, most of them being members of the Bolosky family, including Jerzy Bolosky and his brother Billy Bolosky, but in many other episodes he appears as other types of characters, like the ones I mentioned earlier. Jerzy is apparently Russian, however, several times during the series he would break character, or in one case the fourth wall, and declared directly to the camera,
I'm not really foreign, you know. I just do it to appear more sophisticated.
and all his other characters break the fourth wall too. Like Harry the Bastard breaks the fourth wall when he's dressed as a vampire, saying how he thinks that everyone thinks that he's sold out since he started doing telly, since he's a comedian.
So yeah, Alexei was in every single episode of the show. And every one of his characters would always break the fourth wall in the middle of the story. So it's great that a great comedian like Alexei would come up with his own material to add to the show.
I've not always been mad, you know, but I was actually driven mad by the indifference of architects and council planners. You see, I live in a tower block, and the thing about those is there's a terrible noise problem, because there's no noise insulation at all, you know, and 8 floors below you there's always some bastard who's got a Yamaha home organ, you know. You're just about to go to sleep and you hear this.
The show always took place in London, but even though it was meant to be set in London, various scenes were filmed around Bristol. Yeah, it was a surprise to me too that even though the show was set in North London, many scenes were filmed at Bristol. One of the most recognisable sets being Bristol Temple Mead Station. And I find that very interesting because I live in Bristol. Who'd have guessed that they'd have filmed it in my hometown, eh? The show has become really popular in the 80s and still gains a popularity today, with various DVD releases and TV repeats occasionally.
Now, I never really heard about the young ones until I found out about it on YouTube. So I decided to take a look at the show for real, and I liked it. And I still love it today. I honestly think it's one of the best 80s British comedies I've ever seen.
And I reviewed this show in dedication to Rik Mayall, who recently passed away, because in my opinion he was a great comedy writer and actor. Whatever show he was in, he would always give it his all and do whatever he wanted to do. So I would like to thank you, Rik, for bringing us this comedy gold. It will never be forgotten, and you will never be forgotten. And you may remember quite some time ago that I listed this show as the top 15 comedic influences from my childhood, because of its over-the-top humour and the fact that they broke the fourth wall in pretty much every single episode. Writers Ben Elton and Rik Mayall pretty much did whatever they wanted. They wrote what jokes they wanted to write in. Even if their jokes had nothing to do with the story, they just did what they thought was funny and didn't worry about what other people were going to say. They're two writers who would take chances, no matter what the consequences were. They just did whatever they wanted to do and didn't care about what other people were going to say about it. And as I said before, some of the best comedy comes from that. Do what you want to do and don't worry what other people are going to say about it. In fact, Ben Elton made a couple of appearances in the show as various characters who were wild and over the top. It's funny how a writer would like to put himself on screen as well as writing. So if you want to watch a comedy show that has brilliant over-the-top 80s humour, then I definitely check this out. You'll get a lot of laughs out of it. And if you ever loved Rik, then you'll definitely enjoy this show. It was one of the great British comedies.
I'm Dalek44, and I do this for you, Rik. You were a great comedian, and you'll always be remembered.